Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you a weekly reading update. This is new because I've decided, last week I think I shared a mid-month wrap-up and it still was like overwhelming to me. I don't know why. I guess because I read so many books. So I'm going to try to do a weekly reading update. And I may or may not finish a book that week, but I'll just check in with you to let you know where I am. Because normally I will finish at least one book a week. The reason I'm going to post it on Mondays though is because I usually try to finish up things by the weekend because I have a little more time on the weekend to read. I decided, well, I will read, start something new usually on Mondays and then read and report back on the next Monday how I did the previous week. We'll see how this goes. But I just feel like I'm overwhelmed with trying to keep up with everything. And I also noticed on my Goodreads and on my reading journal that there are books I have not even talked about on this channel that I've read this year. And so I'm like, I'm forgetting things to share with you. So this way I can keep up with it and have a better record of what I'm reading week by week. We'll see how this goes. So this past week I read 4 books. I finished 4 books, and one was a group read, one was a buddy read, and then I also read a graphic novel and one that I had been chomping at the bit to get to since I received it for my birthday. So the first one I want to talk about is the graphic novel. If you follow my channel, you know that I am in the search for some really good graphic novels, and I haven't been very successful at that. But I was watching Krista from Books and Jams a couple of weeks ago, and she shared one of her videos where she just reads and you read along with her, and then she finished the book actually by the end of the video, and she talked about it. It sounded super interesting. So I went straight to my library and checked it out. And it is Lightfall, The Girl and the Galdurian. And this was fantastic. I'm so glad that Krista shared it on her channel because I loved it. This was a graphic novel that really speaks to me. It's about a little girl who lives with her grandfather, who is a pig wizard of all things, and she meets this Galdurian who is like the last of his kind while she's in search of her grandfather. Her grandfather has gone missing, and so she's in search of her grandfather, and she comes upon this Galdurian, and he joins her on this journey. It is a delightful read. It's about friendship and loyalty, and it's just, I loved the pictures, the illustrations were great, the story was wonderful. It really kept me interested, and I was invested in the story all the way. I really like the way this one's drawn. One of the things that I do love about this one is that it has a lot of forestry type elements. They're in sort of a forest, a deep dark forest, as they're traveling most of the way. And I love stories set in forest. So there's one picture that I really just love. There's also a map at the beginning. I love that. But at the very beginning, it shows her grandfather's little place. And I just thought that was precious. That really captured my attention. And that sort of illustration is right up my alley. That's the kind of things I like to, illustrations that I like to see in books. So this was a delightful read. After I was reading, I didn't notice that it actually says book 1 at the top of this. But this is book 1, and there is actually a book 2 already, but that's it in the series. And so my son laughed at me because he said, now you're going to know how I feel, because he reads comics all the time, and he's always waiting on the next one. And he laughed because he said, okay, you're going to go ahead and read book 2, and then you're going to have to wait a year or so before you can read the next one. And I normally don't read that way because I read backlist books all the time. So he just thought that was funny and teased me about it. But I will be reading book 2. I've already placed a hold on it in my library. So I will definitely be getting to that as soon as possible. This one, again, was a delight to read. It was the kind of graphic novel that I enjoy. I sat down in one sitting, and I think I read it in about an hour. It was so good. And then my son, while I was reading this, he was reading one of his new comic books. He took it after I read it and read it too, and he enjoyed it. And he asked me the other day, he said, did you pick up the next Lightfall book? And I said, no, it's still on hold. I'm in line for it. I'm sure he'll read that one too. This I do recommend if you're looking for a good middle grade graphic novel. This is a great one. And then I read, for the buddy read that I have been participating in with my son, we have been reading through the Chronicles of Narnia. We started that in January and we finished it up this past week. And our last book was The Last Battle. This is the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. And I really enjoyed this. I thought this was a great ending to the series. Especially the last couple of chapters really just sums everything up. It brings everything back together from the beginning of the series, and I like the way it ended. This was so much fun for me, and my son enjoyed it too. I probably would give this one a 4-star. It's not my favorite in the series, but it was a great ending to the series. So I do recommend the Chronicles of Narnia. I hope to sit down and kind of think about my rankings of the series and my thoughts on it, and I hope to post something about that soon. So I finished The Last Battle, I finished a graphic novel, and then I also finished the group read for this month for the Analog, and that is Anne of Ingleside. And I mentioned this one earlier this month. And this one was better than last month. If you follow my channel, you know that I did not really enjoy the last one in this series, but this one had a little bit more Anne in it. It's about Anne and her children mainly, and there's a lot of little stories about her children through it, but Anne was more, I don't know, she was present in this story, and it was more about her mothering her children. So I did like that. It wasn't enough of Anne for me, but it was better than the last one. So I'm going to continue reading this series because I only have a couple of books left, but I am sort of, I hate to say it, but I'm getting kind of bored with this series. The beginning is so good. Of course, Anne of Green Gables is one of the best books ever. And the first few I was really enjoying, but lately the past few have just not been as good. Fortunately, this one was a little bit better. So that was Anne of Ingleside. And then finally, I left the best for last because this was my favorite read this week, and I want everybody to read this. This is called My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell or Durrell. I'm not sure how you say his name, but he has apparently a series of these. And this is about his life when his family moved to Corfu. And it is so funny. And I want to thank Nikki from Red Dot Reads for mentioning this, because she's mentioned this book several times on her channel. And I always had it in the back of my mind. So I mentioned it this past year that I wanted it. And so my family picked it up for my birthday. This was the perfect start for summer. This was a great one. It was so funny. I was laughing out loud through this story. So it's about Gerald when he's 10 years old and his family moves to Corfu, as I mentioned, and their relationships with the people in the community, meeting the new people, they're all quirky, eccentric people. So it makes for a fantastic read. But it's also about the animals that Gerald, as a 10-year-old, collects as he is on this new in this new environment. So there are so many different episodes with scorpions and turtles and dogs and just every kind of animal you could think of. What made it so funny for me was, well, there is this one incident with the mother in her bathing suit. Oh my goodness. If you want to call it a bathing suit. I don't know what it is she orders this bathing suit that's like this outdated, old-fashioned bathing suit. And there is just this mishap when she goes into the water. It was just hilarious. But there's a lot of those in here. I'm laughing out loud. But what I was going to say was, it's not only about his family, but he personifies the animals as he is interacting with them. And he gives all the animals their own personality. and it made for just a wonderful read. If you enjoy nature and animals, you will love this, and I do. It reminds me a little bit of All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot, and I've only read the first one in that series, but I want to read the others, and I want to read the rest in this series too, because he's a great writer. He writes a lot like James Herriot, in that every chapter is like another episode, so it makes for a great, just read, you know, a chapter a day or something like that would be perfect. And I do recommend this for summer because it feels very summery. Oh my goodness, it was such a delight. I loved this book, and I was just laughing all the way through. Now, I didn't read just a chapter a day because I couldn't stop reading. It was just so funny and entertaining, and he just pulls you through. I never thought I would enjoy a book about the creatures, you know, because it's about snakes and scorpions. It's not just little puppies. So I didn't think that I would enjoy that quite as much, but I did. Just the way he personifies them, it just makes it for a funny read. So I highly recommend My Family and Other Animals, and I do hope to pick up others in this series. And I have heard that there is a TV adaptation, so I hope to look for that soon. So those are the books that I have read this week. I had a great week of reading. I was proud of myself for getting the Anne book read, because I usually wait to the end of the month to read those, and I thought I'm going to go ahead and read it because, as I said earlier, I was a little disappointed in the last one, so I was kind of like, I'm just going to go ahead and get it over with, to be honest. But happily, I did enjoy that a little bit better than the last one. I was so proud to finish up the Chronicles of Narnia with my son. That was our accomplishment since the beginning of January. That was a fun one to do, and I really enjoyed doing that with my son. And then, of course, this was fantastic. Oh, and I did enjoy picking up a graphic novel, because that is something that I'm looking for. So if you do know of any graphic novels that are similar to this, if you've read this one, let me know that in the comments, because I'd like to pick up that too. So those are the books that I've read. What have you been reading this week? Let me know that in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.